out the fiscal year 22 budget as part of our new business. So we don't have to address that right now. The other component of my report is I am still trying to get county board representation for us. We had someone who is no longer a part of the county board. I have sent a couple of letters. I am not getting much response to those, so I'm going to try to actually have make some phone calls and have some conversations. If anyone knows of someone they think that might be interested, I'd be happy to talk to that person. I don't know, Lark, you're shaking your head. I don't know if that.
Yeah, I do know a couple people that that are potentially interested. Do you want me to give them your name, or do you want me to send them a text and they can talk to Corrine?
Yeah, that would be great, because I have been sending letters to Corrine, but I'm getting no response.
Should show up at her event in the park this evening and ask her.
So, I mean, if you know of people that would be interested, definitely let's go that way then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out.
Thanks. Okay. And so that is all of the chairman's report. We can move on to old business and do an update on our priorities. Julia, do you want to talk about Mila? Oh, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm good now. I think our internet is stable. So yesterday, Mila presented to the Illinois Juvenile Justice Commission and was well received. And there was a commissioner, some may be familiar with her, Lisa Jacobs, who works with Loyola, and they were kind of asking Mila about her aspirations for the future. And she mentioned something about being an attorney. And so Lisa Jacobs was ready to talk with her about, Loyola and potentially attending there. So it was just exciting just to see that she's getting some more opportunity by being in front of stakeholders. And they also talked about their youth advisory board and that she would be an ideal candidate to participate in their youth advisory board once they get that up and going. So hopefully there will be additional opportunities for her, but definitely well received and impressed the commissioners, not unlike what she did with our group. So
that is awesome. In relation to that, we had talked about, after Mila was here, potentially having her as the youth on our board. I did look into that, and the statute is clear that it has to be local youth involved in the justice system. So I don't think that Mila would fit. Unfortunately for us, but fortunately for her, I don't believe that she fits within the criteria for what we need to meet the statute.
Do you think that we could have, would there be objection to having like a mix of youth? So some that have justice system involvement or past justice system involvement, and youth that are,
So I can take another look at the statute. I mean, the statute said that they had, so I forgot what it says about us. It does say something about us adding other people as well. So maybe, yes, maybe we
the discretion of the chair, I think.
Yeah, so we could discuss just adding, I guess my question would be, if we don't have anyone who is justice involved, can we have someone who is not justice involved? I don't know what anybody else thinks about that.
I would think, because the statute talks about specifically having somebody justice involved, if we got someone that was justice involved, then added Mila, I think we would be okay. But I don't think we could have her as a representative alone unless we had somebody already justice involved, would be my interpretation of it.
That's kind of what I think too, because it specifically says youth that are justice involved. I feel like we would be kind of skirting around that part of it. Yeah. Anybody else on that? Okay, I'll take another look at the statute and see what it says, and we can discuss it again. And then as moving on to restorative practices, the training of the trainers was completed. Julia says everyone attended who was supposed to, so that is good. And the materials have been ordered. I did sign all of the memorandum MOUs, so those are taken care of as well. So that vote did pass for that. Any questions on that? Am I forgetting anything on that, Julia? Then the law enforcement training. So we need to determine a date for the strategies for youth training. Julia, I'm sorry, I meant to contact you, but I don't have information on the vote, how the vote came.
Oh, so the email vote reports were passed, and the second email vote, the updated one, that one passed. The first one did not pass.
Okay. So our next step is determining a date then?
Yeah, so that would just be for the 2-day training for 8 hours from 8 to 4. But there are some additional requests that came as part of us confirming that we are committing to this training, which they did not necessarily disclose initially. But really what that entails is that they're going to be asking for some data to help with the training. I'm pulling it up now. They're also asking to see if we can have a well, it would be Judge Parga, so the juvenile delinquency judge, a prosecutor, and probation attend for a question and answer block of the second day of training. And then they were asking for some community youth serving organizations and potentially some local youth to participate in the role playing. But that, oh, I'm sorry, that's day. Okay, so maybe he has this highlighted, but it's only a 2-day training, so I would have to confirm. But regardless, they're looking for some stakeholders to participate. And then we would have to sort out if we were going to offer lunch or if we were going to do lunch on your own.
Julia, is there a date set already for the training?
No, we need to set the date. That's the question. But I just wanted everyone to be aware of the additional commitment pieces that we learned.
So I guess maybe we could start. Judge Parga, would you be open to attending?
Sure. Yeah, I would be open to attending. I think that would be helpful to, I think that would be helpful for all of us just to understand kind of how all the pieces fit together.
And Devin.
Now, I'm sorry, Rachel. Julia, do we need a certain amount of people to be in the class? Was it, I thought the number was 30. I know we talked about liaison officers, but I don't know if we had a threshold for how many people. I don't know if we have to have 30 people in the class, or is that the most we can have? Do you remember our discussion on that?
I was trying to look real quick with it. Was it 30 or 25?
So I'm guessing if only 5 people show up, they're not going to come out and want to do it. So I thought we had trying to remember what we discussed in our previous emails.
So I can ask if there's a minimum number of attendees, but I want to say that it was, I can't remember the number. It's somewhere between 25 and 30 or 35
okay.
maybe. But I can ask if there's a minimum that we need to meet in order for them to come out.
All right, I'm looking at one. Host a one-time 2-day police training at no cost for JJC for 30 officers in Kane County. So
yeah, so you're right.
Okay, all right.
And Julia, how much of a lead time do they? I mean, like when we are talking about selecting of a date, did they tell you a time frame that they would need?
They said anytime between September 6th and Thanksgiving.
Okay.
That was back at the end of June. So I would say probably October, November at this point. I imagine that they're filling up in September.
Okay. And I don't know, maybe Kristen and Eric, do you think a date that would be better for law enforcement?
I know the week of September 27th, there is a negotiators conference and there's also a pension board conference. So I would say from September 27th through October 1st, definitely not that week because there's going to be a lot of people gone. Otherwise, I don't know of anything else scheduled. Maybe Eric, you can shed some light. I know there's another conference middle of October as well, a homicide conference.
Well, I'm just thinking for liaison officers, you know, that I'm pretty sure most school districts would have the whole week of Thanksgiving off. So, and I know that's kind of pushing it to Thanksgiving. So like the Monday and Tuesday be November 22nd, 23rd, where we have, you know, SROs not in school, because that might be a deterrent if class is going on, missing 2 days. Just a thought as far as that's concerned. Not that other juvenile officers couldn't, you know, be in attendance, but I don't know if the liaison officers are more, you know, if liaison officers are more applicable to attend the training.
Is there a fall break? Or is that the fall break over Thanksgiving?
Yeah, the week of Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So Thanksgiving is November 25th, and
Right.
there's no school that whole week. So I was just thinking the 22nd, 23rd. And again, I assume most school districts have that week now. Not like back when we went to school, it was just you only got the Thursday, Friday. You didn't get the whole week, whereas now it seems pretty commonplace. And I know I'm just looking at, again, I'm looking at St. Charles School District. I think the 7th and the 8th is no school. That's right around, I think, on the 11th is Columbus Day. So typically there's a long weekend there. Again, I don't know if that's common for other school districts as well, but that's just a thought there too. And again, it doesn't, I guess to me, it's not life or death if the liaisons miss school. They go to other trainings and everything. So, I mean, if we had to have it on 2 other days and the liaisons had to go, you know, it's not the end of the world, but just thinking along the lines of other departments don't want their liaison officers out of school for 2 days in a row, you know, to try to find a conducive day where there's no school, but they're still working.
So
I don't know, I guess we have to check with other school district calendars to see what days jive, I guess.
I know 129 because that's where I'm in. They don't have the whole week off for Thanksgiving, but again, I think that's okay because we're not going to be able to accommodate. You know, I think just it's an excellent idea though to try it that week since a lot of school districts are off. So I think there might be some more people available.
What about Columbus Day? Because that seems like a pretty common day, the 11th of October. I don't know if that's a common day to have off, because then that's at least one day, you know, where the kids aren't in and they just go to the Tuesday and there's really missing one day. I don't know if that's a common thing or if that's the same in your district, Kristen.
I'm not sure. I know the homicide conference is the 12th, but again, I don't know how many SROs would be attending that. So that is another idea too.
Okay.
should we see, Julia, should we give them some options and see what they can accommodate for us?
Yeah, we can, or I just think like if there's a date that works better for us, I feel like we need to prefer that, and then like they can work with us, work around us.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Thanksgiving week would be good. Even, you know, if the schools don't have off, there's probably not a whole lot going on at school that week too.
Okay. So I think
understand.
as long as people aren't off that week as well. I know some people like to take that week off.
Yeah, that's true.
We try for that week, or do you want to try, or does everybody want to try for the October 11th? Do you think that would be better?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, Kristen, what do you think? The October 11th? And or I
I'm
don't know
thinking
if
right now, like, yeah, I think I think the October 11th might be better because SROs have a hard time taking time off during the year. So that Thanksgiving week could be their time that they take off, for personal.
Yeah.
So I think the
Right.
October 11th might be, I think that might be better to do.
And where is the homicide conference? Is that, where is
It's
that?
local. It's in Itasca.
Oh, okay. And that's a week-long conference?
Just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, understood.
But yeah, I think the October 11th date would be better.
The 11th and 12th, okay.
Okay. So was that all? That was all we needed to discuss on that one, right, Julia?
Yes, and then we need to figure out who would be going to it then.
So who they
And
wanted?
where would we host it? We going to be at King County or?
That would be the other question too, is where
Okay.
I know you offered
Thanks
up
for the-
St. Charles. I think central
I'll have-
location would be best.
Right, okay. I'll have to check on those 2 days, just to see if the room is free. And I'll have to get back to you because I couldn't tell you that right this second, so.
What's the best way to, because then once we, I think, invite officers, then they're looking for arrest data from those agencies.
All right, what kind of data? How much time, like the last, like 2020 or? Whatever.
They're looking for, it just says, sorry. This is like a 6-page preparation document, by the way, which I'm happy to send out. But
Can you send it out?
yeah, I can send it to you. It just says gather youth arrest and contact data for area agencies and send a strategist for youth 6 weeks out. So that would be like beginning of September, we'd need to be able to send arrest data, but they didn't give me specific timelines of when they're looking for that data. So yeah, I can send you what they're asking for and.
Okay. Maybe we can get together offline and go through, and Kristen, I mean, I don't know.
Kind of strategize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if our county data would be okay. You know what I mean? If we're all from King County, I don't know. I know we have kind of that generic detention data, but not all the individual department data.
The only problem with that is the county arrest data is not really good data.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Understood. Yeah, you're right.
And we would have to go to whoever has the leads data access, right, for that? Or is there another entity that has that? So it'd be like ICEJA, I think they have it.
I'm not sure.
I think that's the entity that provides it
And
to
they
the
want
commission.
whatever agencies are coming, they want their data. So then we'd have to invite, see who's coming, then find this data. That sounds like a, I don't know. That doesn't give us a lot of time.
No, that's going to be pretty complex, especially if you're looking for all arrest data, since each department stores that differently. Again, I think it's possible. Just think it's going to be a hurdle to overcome.
I guess I think we should rely on Eric and Kristen, but do you think that is something that could be accomplished this year, or should we push out to January?
The training?
Well, I mean, if it's going to take us a long time to get the data.
Yeah, and I think too, with 2020 data, it's really going to be skewed because of COVID. You know what I mean? I think that data wouldn't be, so maybe, and I'm not saying we have to, maybe in the summer of 2022 might be a better time. So I think knowing what we need and how much we need to put together, doing the training later, and I don't know if that affects our funding or budget year or whatever. But then I think like the 2021 data would be definitely more accurate because it's, you know, kind of more back to normal, if you will.
So what if, because I know they were, so we're using funding from, that they secured from Motorola. So I don't know what the limitations are in terms of using that money. I know that they were up against kind of some pressure to yes or no use it. So I don't know if there's a deadline that we need to, that we're up against with that. But what if I go back and get some clarification now that they've put out sort of what they're looking for at this point and see what they say, and then I can follow up at least with Eric and Kristen to start, and we can continue the conversation.
I think that's
Yeah, I think that, go ahead, Rachel.
Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, the more time we have, I think the better, because then we can notify agencies and again, any kind of free training is, people kind of jump on that. And I think it's good stuff, especially if school's not in session, for liaison officers working with youth. I think the training idea is good, and maybe having a little more time to advertise that training, I think might create more interest and get us to fill the 30 spots. So.
I think the other question would be is if they don't have the data, does that mean they won't do the training? You know, like, does that exclude them being even willing to provide the training? Understanding we may have some data, you might not have it from all the departments represented. You know what I mean? I think that's another question you should ask when you reach out, because that'll determine our next steps.
So Juliet, so why don't we, so you will send the information that you have to Kristen and Eric to take a look at, and let you guys confer about that, and you'll go back to them with our questions and we'll see where we are.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything else on that? Okay. So we'll move on to resource folder, which Julia is still working on. There's been back and forth among the committee and just some things that needed to be cleaned up and taken care of. And then we'll have those out. And then final is the expungement packets. The new forms have to be, are at the beginning of September. So we will make sure that we have that all set to go in August, so we're ready to use them in September. Okay. Anything on any of those? Okay, Julie, do you want to talk about the red?
Yeah, so we met, like we talked about in June, and just as it relates more so to adolescent domestic battery. And so there are some additional conversations occurring with that, with some stakeholders to move that along with the adolescent domestic battery, and trying to figure out how, like, if there's a better response to it, or how we can address the elevated numbers or offenses occurring. And so the other piece I wanted to highlight with that, though, is that for the grant, we had to identify a challenging issue and really expand on it. So if you took a look at the grant materials, you might have seen the challenging issue broken down, and that the adolescent domestic battery fell into one of those categories. It's actually a concern of some of the commissioners on the commission. So there are it's an important topic for us to be talking about. There's some other communities that are looking to address it as well. So with that, that's kind of where we're at. But I just wanted the board to be aware that that is something that we've outlined in our grant application that we will be addressing. And so with that, as those conversations are continuing, then I also am going to be reconvening the RED group to work on our RED plan, which we, again, we submitted to everybody to look at before we submitted the grant. So if you haven't seen that, when we talk about the grant, I was going to kind of run through some of those things. And then I also just wanted to share an update. I've been involved in the commission's RED committee. So they have their own RED committee. They're getting technical assistance from an OGJDP technical assistance agency. And their priorities, they have like it's a 3-year plan. So their priorities, their first year is really to gather more information about, or gather more data, find where some of those gaps in data are, and then start looking at specific jurisdictions where needs are arising as it relates to some of the racial and ethnic disparities in those jurisdictions around the state, and providing support and thinking about, best practices and programs that might be able to address the needs coming up in those areas. So again, just wanted to pass along that we're also part of those conversations as a council too.
Anybody have anything on that? Okay, we can move on to the CCBYS letter of support. That was an email vote. Did we talk about this before? It did not pass, correct, Julia?
It didn't pass. We just had to put it on record
Okay.
on the agenda.
I thought that we
The
talked
email
about
vote.
it before.
Yep.
And then we can move on to the fiscal year 2022 grant. So we were awarded the grant, and Julia is waiting to receive the contract. Once that is received, we will present it to the board. And also we have to do a resolution with the county board to get it passed for our board. And so Julia, do you want to share at this point, Julia, all the?
Yeah, I think I just want to walk through it just to show kind of like what we had to put together for the grant so that the board is aware. And I want to be mindful of time so we have time to talk about structure, but going into the new fiscal year, I just wanted to run through some of this, again, what we put in the grant application so that we kind of keep track of it. And I'm trying to be more mindful of that to keep us focused on our plans that we've created for the grant so that we can monitor our progress throughout the year a little bit more closely. So this actually, yeah, let me start with this one. So we first have to start with the analysis of juvenile delinquency problems and needs. So this is informed. I just did it. So let me just clarify, I don't get a structure to put these together, and I don't have a format to put these together. And so this is all just my own formatting. I just have descriptions of what they're looking for. So this can all be revised or restructured if it doesn't make sense. But what I did was I went through our data that we collected throughout the fiscal year. And then also thinking about some of the conversations when we're asking for those discussions, that's an opportunity to gain data, the qualitative data from perspectives of stakeholders in the community. And so I took all of that and used that to inform this analysis of our delinquency problems and needs in King County. And then I broke it down by decision point because that's how we collected our quantitative data with the spreadsheets that we have to submit. We know that there's limitations in collecting our arrest data, so that is first and foremost one of our concerns or problems or needs for King County. That's kind of spelled out that we don't have that, and we've got some justification from some data sources, and then what some of those potential implications or why that's a concern, why it's important that we address this problem are. So kind of just going through, I'm not going to read through all of them. Oops, sorry. Because I can send this all out again. But again, it just kind of breaks it down by decision point to analyze some of the needs that came up at the decision points. And then some of the other, then I have just like an other catch-all category that has some of the needs that have been identified that are kind of just, not necessarily being addressed, but they are something that has come up in conversation. So I wanted to make note of those so that if we have, as we're addressing things, we can keep these in mind as we're putting together plans. So then this analysis of the juvenile delinquency problems and needs then informs our strategic plan. So this one is still broken down by decision point. And so there's some specific goals that are captured. And so really it was just prioritizing, again, based on some of the conversations that we were having, I just prioritized some of those needs into our plan. So first one being, of course, we want to be we've talked about this at length, trying to get that arrest data collected. So putting that as a priority with our arrest decision point. And then it's got, some of the more broad strategies and then some specific actions that can be taken to be doing that. But these are things that we want to be, trying to do over the course of our fiscal year. With detention, you see that we have the adolescent domestic battery, trying to reduce the number of youth being detained for this offense. So that kind of coincides then with our challenging issue. So I was trying to really make sure that there was a connection between all of these different pieces. And then we have just like the cross-system collaboration, more so like building and sustaining those relationships, which has been, I feel like, the ongoing thing that we've been doing, but I think it is continuing to be a priority that we maintain and strengthen those relationships. So that is why that one has been identified. And then, of course, our racial and ethnic disparities, which connects to our RED plan. So this is the RED plan. So far, this is the RED team that meets. These are the ones that we designated last fall. More can be added. This is not limited to these individuals. This is just who had been identified. And so then these were the team meetings that we had throughout the year. And so just going beyond, explaining our experience, our accomplishments. And then it goes into some of the data, the broad data that we have, and then our data access, and some of the efforts that we put in to access that data. And then some of the findings that we have this is from calendar year 2018, because this is where it's all kind of been analyzed, and these were the trends that were identified. That's the most recent that I have. We have some data that we've already submitted from calendar year 2019, but it hasn't necessarily been like synthesized into this format. So we outlined some of the data, talk about some of our supplemental sources of data that we have access to based on our relationships in the community. And then we get into the plan itself by identifying the areas of focus, the goals of those areas, the data that justifies that goal, and then the strategies and specific actions to start addressing some of those goals. So this is what I want to really hone in on with our RED team and start working on. And again, that's open to anyone on the board if there's additional members that want to join. And then it also has the entities that are addressing disparities in the community. This isn't exhaustive by any means. I imagine there's a lot more conversations happening. These are just the ones that I've been made aware of. And then just our obstacles and the anticipated income. It'd be nice if there's income, anticipated outcome and impact of our efforts as well. So that kind of wraps up the RED plan. And so the last thing that I want to share with all of you is, you already saw the budget. So you don't have to read this, but we have to outline performance measures in our grant application. And so there are specific performance measures that we have put in here. So by the end of the fiscal year, we want to be identifying and beginning that implementation on a strategy to address the issue of adolescent domestic battery in King County. We want to administer the survey that has been administered and continue to conduct those relational meetings with all members to really refine that structure so that we can reinforce our engagement and involvement in activities. Be engaged. We also want to be working on that proof of concept with collecting arrest data. That's another performance measure by the end of the second quarter. So hopefully this isn't too lofty, but I'm hoping by the end of this calendar year, which would be the end of the second quarter, that we can get moving on our arrest data collection. And then the fourth one being related to our racial and ethnic disparities work, that we continue convening the RED team on a quarterly basis and making progress toward the goals identified on the RED plan. So there's just 4 performance measures that we have identified for this fiscal year that we keep track of, and I have to report on in our quarterly reports to the commission. So with that, that was a lot. I can share all of those materials with the board, but I just wanted to walk through them a little bit more in depth, so it may hopefully will make a little more sense of what I share out with all of you.
Any questions or comments about any of that? And Julia wants to talk about the surveys that she sent out. So if we don't have anything on what she presented, we can move on to the surveys. Okay.
Okay. So I will just kind of run through. So I've got 5 responses from the board of directors, and I've got 12 responses from the rest of the council. So I think, like we talked about at the last meeting, I separated out the links to the survey. It's actually the same survey. I just separated it out by group, just to see sort of what the responses were. And so far, we've got pretty much mixed reviews. There's some that are familiar with the vision statement. Most are agreeing that it is representative of our initiatives. It aligns with our initiatives. Same with the mission statement. Let's see. In terms of involvement, majority of folks are identifying that they stay informed by reviewing the emails and materials that are distributed. Some are saying, I attend meetings when I'm able to. Some are saying that they're actively engaged in subcommittees. So it kind of decreases from I stay informed by reviewing emails, which is not inconsistent with what we experience in meetings and subcommittees and discussion. There's sort of mixed reviews about the purpose of the JJC's presence. So it seems like some clarity around that could be beneficial. And again, it's not lost on me that, this is only 17 and our email distribution list is up to, I want to say like almost 100. So this is not a very high response rate given the group that it's been sent to. So take that for what it's worth. But and I can put all this into a report for all of you to review if you find it helpful, or if you want me to continue collecting responses. I know that summer vacations probably had an impact on some of this, so I'm happy to continue the collection process before we really put together a report and really analyze it too far. But I just wanted to give an update on the progress so far. I would say, so some other highlights, just in terms of member engagement, many are saying that, some members are providing their perspective based on the topic. Some are agreeing that, only members of the board are engaged in discussions, or there's a select number of drivers. There's a couple responses for those. The barriers that inhibit participation, there's some that a big majority on the council saying that lack of relationship with others involved on the JJC contributes to that. Some are saying conflicts with other meetings. Among the board, conversation is not relevant to their experience is the number one barrier that contributes to active participation. The goal areas, there's mixed reviews about whether or not those are still relevant, if we should keep them, or if there's even awareness that we had 5 goal areas. Most believe that the areas of priority that have been identified are relevant. So that's good confirmation. In terms of understanding of racial and ethnic disparities, we have kind of split between staying informed by reading articles and other resources that are shared, and others who are actively reflecting on their own behavior, how their behavior contributes to the issue. Trying to find anything else that would be relevant. There's kind of mixed reviews of the comfort level of including youth and parents as members and decision makers on the JJC as well. So I think that kind of gives you a summary of the results of the survey so far. I don't know what the board's reaction is, if we want to continue it, get more responses, and then I can put together a report for the board, or what we think.
What would be the next step after the survey, after you get the results? I mean, is it just an informational thing, or what do we do with it?
My hope was that we could have a conversation as a board to determine, because so to me, like, I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for work to be done in response to that. There's mixed reviews about people understanding the purpose of the JJC, or that our goal areas are reflective. So I think it just gives information about where the members are, and we can use that then to, refine our processes, refine what we're doing, provide clarity. I think there is a ton of opportunity for some clarity and refining.
How long ago did you send the survey out?
It was beginning of July, I want to say, end of June. So it hasn't been that long that it's been out.
I would maybe send a reminder again to fill out the survey. I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I get a survey, I open it, I start it, it's too long, I ain't got time for it, I go back. And you know what I mean? So it could just be that we could get more respondents. We're not gonna get anywhere near the 100 people that we sent it to. But if we could maybe get at least 25% of our list, I think we take that, and I do believe that there are some opportunities for growth and improvement based upon the data we got. But I just think we should maybe give it a little more time and maybe another reminder to make sure what we're addressing is truly a reflective of the people that come to the meetings.
I would agree with that. I think that we need to try to at least get some more. So Julie, you want to try sending it out, and then we can discuss again next month?
Depending on what we decide for next month.
I was just gonna say, but we have to talk about what is that.
Yeah. The other thing too is if it continues as is, that gives us just around 2 weeks or so to get some of that. So I wonder if even pushing it out to September, give it until the end of August, and then I can put together that report.
I will push it to September just because, like you said, with the schools and all this stuff, summer, people are not as engaged.
All right. So do we want to discuss the meeting dates?
Yeah.
So what was the, do you want to discuss the outcome of the surveys on that?
Well, I think my question is, and maybe I don't know if we just set the meeting dates for this fiscal year and sort of continue this discussion throughout the fiscal year, and maybe next year is the time to start the restructuring if we're going to restructure. But I guess my question being, we can have, I went back to the statute, and we can have up to, I think it's 21 voting members, but we have this larger group too, and we know that they're not all active participants in the meeting. Some have never even been to a meeting. So I guess, I brought it up this past fiscal year, do we want to continue in this manner as we're doing, and knowing that we have, this list of 100 people, and really only 25% are probably actively engaged. And some of that's even inconsistent when you get into the larger board or larger council. Yeah, so my question is, do we want to continue in this manner, or do we want to, sort of restructure, formalize partnerships? I don't know, like what would be.
So I don't know, maybe I'm unclear. So you're asking if we want to expand the board of directors or lessen our people outside of the board of directors?
Well, I don't know if, and that was part of the question on the survey, was I don't know if the fact that members outside of the board of directors that don't have decision-making powers, if they don't engage because they don't have an active voice in those decisions. I mean, arguably you could say that their voice still informs the decisions because we rely on their feedback, but they don't necessarily get a chance to vote. And so I don't know if that's inhibiting some of the engagement that we're seeing, or the other thing too is that there's on our performance measures, and maybe at the next meeting I should go through our what we have to report on, because it does ask about like interagency agreements. And so we haven't really established those outside of the MOUs that we put out for the restorative practices trainings, in terms of like formalizing agreements to be a part of this council.
I would say understanding that, then I don't know if we change the structure until you've got maybe those MOUs that give a level of commitment, because I think in order to be a voting member or be able to give that level of input, you've got to have a certain level of commitment and understanding of the work that's being done. So maybe it is reviewing our output measures and ultimately trying to get these 100 people or representatives from those agencies of these people saying that I am committed to being a part of the council. I will have a member at these meetings at least 75% of the time or something like that. And then we potentially restructure, as opposed to doing it now, because then we may just be kind of in a flux until we figure out how we want to handle next steps.
I would agree. I think that we have to have a plan going forward ourselves, you know, and maybe as Latanya said, talking to them, get some memos of understanding to get people that would actually be commit to being a part of it. So I don't know if that's something that we need to get more survey results too before we address that. I don't know. I don't know what anybody thinks about that.
I think it's hard because at least when I first came to a meeting a couple of years ago, it seemed like there were a lot more people at the broader meetings participating. And I know COVID and Zoom, and in some ways Zoom makes it easier. But I think at least from what I saw from that first meeting I came to is a lot of people also used it to network and to kind of just quickly catch up with each other. And it's much harder to do that on Zoom, right? Like we're all here and it is convenient because we don't have to go anywhere, but it really eliminates that face-to-face ability to just say, hey, like, let me give you my card, or we do this or we do that. And I think that's part of maybe why we are seeing less people coming to the meetings. I know we had one person not too long ago, and I joined late, but he kind of introduced himself towards the end of the meeting. And so I feel like he even felt very kind of marginalized at that meeting, and then we never saw him again. So I think we have to figure out how to help people feel connected, and that they're whatever agency they're going to come from, if we're going to ask for a commitment, and obviously that involves like a time commitment and all of that, that there's going to be a sense for them that they're also getting something out of it, or helping to, I don't know, just helping us to achieve those goals that are set, like that they can actually see some benefit from it. Because I think when people don't is when they drop out.
That was the question too. Like, what's the carrot part of the agreement? Then like you said, Judge, what are they going to get out of it as being part of this council? But I think what I am hoping for, and by refining this process, like my goal is ultimately to have more engagement, more, individuals involved in the work of the council, or like taking on some of these initiatives and leading some of the things, so that it's not necessarily, I don't mind doing it, but like I feel like we just would get further if we had more individuals doing it too.
And I think, and this might just be because I'm newer to all of this, but I think at least here at the JJC, I feel like there's also just a little bit of a disconnect. And so when we talk about like the trainer of trainers and all this and that, like, I think there's a sense like, how do we fit into that also? And so we're missing that connection too. I think I'm speaking for Ms. Conforti. I think she said I could.
I did laugh. Sorry.
Okay,
I
so
would, I would agree with Judge Parga as far as, you know, like you said, the networking and meeting, and I know there's the King County Juvenile Officers Association that meets, it's liaison officers, it's court services. It really is a good way to network and put names to faces. So I think that, you know, some random liaison officer being on here would be like, you know, who are all you people and what are your positions? Where if you're meeting and you're introducing each other, and at those meetings, I know sometimes we'll have a guest speaker. You know, I don't know. I think there's something to say to kind of be meeting at the same time and talking, and you do create kind of relationships outside because, you know, oh, I want to ask you about this, and now you're working with someone subset to that, and then you meet them again at the next meeting. So I do, and maybe not every meeting, maybe every other meeting, you know what I mean? And then maybe, you know, we have lunch. You want to get people to a meeting? Food, you know what I mean? That's one way to do it. So just like one or once a quarter or whatever, like a summer lunch or something like that, where you know, you kind of bring little people more involved and they get to meet people. And I think once they have some relationships, then I think they're more engaged to, you know, be involved in what we're working on, I would say. So I agree with Judge Park as far as that's concerned.
Julia, we're going to lose LaTanya.
Yeah, I saw that. We would still have a quorum if LaTanya needs to get jumped off and
I just
we can
wanted
get through
to.
those votes. Thank you though.
And Judge Parga, are we going to lose you? Oh, okay. Okay, so what do we want to be our next step for this, Julia?
I think we just need, it sounds like there needs to be more discussion, more thought, or more review of the data, more input maybe before any final decisions are made. But I think we just need to know, it sounds like maybe we just proceed as we have been and continue this discussion to give us some time to really be thoughtful about it and not be up against the meeting date clock, and just put out the meeting dates that we just continue the structure that we have at this time. And then we can continue to refine as we go.
Okay.
Does that sound like capture what everyone's saying?
So you're going to, I'm sorry, Judge, you're going to do a reminder about the survey and give it you know, to the September meeting, and then you'll kind of put out the data, reference a little more time for people to respond. Is that?
Yes, but we have to put out the meeting dates. Like we need to get those posted for the fiscal year. So I'm saying rather than, you know, trying to be up against this clock of getting the meeting dates out there, if we're going to do any restructuring, like just to continue in the format that we are with the quarterly meetings happening. And we would have missed the July one, but in October and January and April, and the board meeting monthly.
Julia, can I ask a question? When we put out those meetings I remember at some point during all this, you were saying Zoom, but then we still had a space to meet in person. So when you are putting out all the meeting dates, we can change that from Zoom to in person, even though the meeting dates are set.
Yes, I believe so. That would be an Open Meetings Act question of how you would do that. I believe so.
Unless Lark knows the answer to that. I can look it up.
I do believe that you can change it.
So even if we set all of our meeting dates, we still could have discussions to do some in person so that we could all be together and people meeting and networking.
Yeah, I would think so. I think you just have to give public notice that you're moving the location, maybe. I'm not sure exactly. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay.
Would the next
Yeah,
council,
you do. You have to give notice that you are moving the location.
would the next council meeting then be in October where everyone would be able to join? Is that what you guys are saying?
The next, where everybody joins or just the board?
No, everyone.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I mean, I think personally, the surveys, I don't know how many more responses you're going to get, especially when people are not even coming to the council meetings. So I don't know. I think efforts are, in my opinion, better spent trying to come up with a way to gather people back in, and kind of like Eric said, either propose a luncheon or something in October, invite everybody back and say, hey, like we're back in person type of thing, to have them see that it's going to be more of an ability to like network, to see people face to face, and to actually like learn about what people do so that they can make connections and referrals, etc. That's my opinion. I don't know how much more we're going to get from surveys.
So I guess my follow-up question to that is like that's kind of been the purpose, not the purpose, but that's been what's happened in the past, prior to going virtual. You would have people that would come and it would be networking and sharing. And I think that's all helpful and I think that's all relevant, but we also didn't get anything really moved forward, I feel like that's where you get some of the ambiguity of what is the purpose of this group. So I don't know what the balance is of offering networking and talking about programs and sharing about programs and really getting down to business and getting work done.
What if you start kind of from the beginning, and that meeting is about what is the purpose of the board? What is our function? What are we supposed to be doing together as a group so that we're all back on the same page again, kind of like a reintroduction to it, as opposed to just networking. I mean, I think the mere fact of being physically together, even if people can just talk as they're walking in or on their way out, that's really the important networking component of it. I think you can still conduct business and get to all the points you need to get. And it would be a great opportunity because I'm sure there's been turnover in agencies. I'm sure that there's new people who have no idea about the board because they filled in someone's spot who's left or moved on. So it's, I think, a good opportunity too, just to kind of reintroduce everything and, say, here's what we're about and what we're doing, and here's what the goals are and why, and how we each, fit together.
And I think that's a good point, because I think that there are a lot of different people now than when we had the facilitator come and we created all of our mission statement and our goals. So I think that would be a really good idea to just get people back and explain to them the purpose and the goals that we created so many years ago.
Okay.
So we'll do October in person.
Sounds like it.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that? Okay, so being cognizant of everyone's time, let's move on to our 3 voting matters. So the first is the approval of the fiscal year 2022 budget. Can I have a motion for discussion on that?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I second.
So the budget has been distributed. Julia wanted me to point out that that you do have to round up, so there's a slight adjustment there. But any other discussion or questions about that? Okay, then I will call for a vote. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, so our budget will be approved as distributed. And then if we could have a motion to discuss the cost of a new laptop for Julia in the amount of $1,099.
I'll motion.
I'll make a second.
So this is something that we had discussed before at the end of last year, and we weren't able to move the funds at that point from one line item to the other. And so now we are just bringing it to a vote at this point, because we would be moving the funds from the training line item over to cover the cost of the laptop. Any discussion on that? Okay. So I'll call for a vote on that. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So that will pass, and we will move funding over to cover the cost of the new laptop. The final one is another one we discussed before, but if we have a motion to discuss $750 to cover the cost of the law enforcement resource cards.
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And if everyone remembers, we did discuss this too, and we decided to put it off until the new budget. So we'd just be asking to move funding again. It'll be $750 for 2,500 of the law enforcement resource cards. Any discussion on that? Okay, then I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that will pass as well. And then our final item, we can do very quickly. Julia, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so when we were talking about the budget for the new fiscal year, there's a suggestion about a potential conference that we could send either representatives to, or someone from the council to. So I came across the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Conference with the Coalition for Juvenile Justice. It's a national conference. And we put in the budget for up to 10 individuals to attend virtually. So you can do it virtually. It's November 1st through the 3rd. So we just need to identify who those 10 individuals would be. And I can send out the agenda to the board. I don't know that we need to decide now, but definitely probably by the next meeting, it would be helpful to kind of get that on the books and determine who's going to be attending, so we can get that all squared away.
I think it'd be good if you could send out the agenda so everybody knows what it would be to make recommendations, or if they are interested.
Mhm.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, any other updates? All right, then it is 1:07, and if I could have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second.
I'll second.
I'll second.
All right, then we are adjourned at 1:07. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.